What's up? This is Brandon London, and you're listening to the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. You hear that? The Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. Let's go, Giants.
Merry Christmas, Giants fans. Welcome back to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast in association with Andy's Man Club. As always, it's okay to talk, lads. Tonight we are 100% British, but absolutely, as always, still 100% Giants. Yes, your eyes do not deceive you. I'm back in the house. I'm feeling good, feeling much better. So yeah, normal services resumed. Producer Craig's back to producing. Shane's back to tanking. Unfortunately, Kev can't be with us tonight due to family commitments, so it's not quite a full house. But I'm sure he doesn't want to relive that Christmas Day trip to the link to take on the Philfydelphia Eagles in a game that really ended up a lot closer than any of us really predicted. Lads, it's great to be back. And no, you do have a new presenter as such. I mean, it's been, I think 4 weeks since I've been on. So yeah, it's good to get back in the room. But Merry Christmas to you both. How are you doing? And how was your Christmas?
Yeah, I mean, first thing I will say, look, viewers, obviously it's just a trial period with this new host, so do let us know which one you prefer, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it was a good Christmas part from obviously what happened on Christmas night with the Giants game, but I think we fully expected it anyway. But the tank train's in full mode again, and we're at pick number 5 now, and we just need Washington and New England to win a couple of games, and we can get that special number 3 spot.
Yeah, I think in our group chat it was quite well revealed that I've now joined the train for the tank for the rest of the season. There's nothing to play for now, is there, really, apart from the draft position? So, do you know what? There was a tweet I put out while I was live tweeting along with the game that said that when we do these podcasts, I'm a little indifferent, and I'm kind of like, yeah, whatever happens. And then they just reel you in, don't they? They have this habit of like reeling you in during the game, and you're like, well, I want to win this now. And then they let you down. Thanks, Steve. Thank you. Welcome aboard.
I mean, this season's been full of letdowns, hasn't it? But no, I just can't get on the tank train, and I won't get on the tank train just because I still want to see competitive football, and we've got nothing to play for. So yeah, obviously there's not a great deal to look forward to over the next 2 weeks, but I don't want to see us lose. It's as simple as that. Really.
It's for the greater good. It's for the greater good, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I really do get it. But at the same time, nothing disappoints me more than seeing my team lose, and regardless of whether it's on purpose or not, I hate seeing us lose. And I even more so, I hate seeing us lose on Christmas Day. Put a sour taste in my mouth at the end of Christmas Day. And it's just, no, that's not why I'm a fan. I'm a fan to see us win. I'm a fan to see us be successful. And I know there's not been much success over the last few years, but I don't want to see us lose out and potentially, it's a difficult one. But I get why people want us to tank. Go for it.
So what you're saying is that you're a true fan?
I am. You too. You're not true fans, not real fans. No, that's harsh. Yeah, I'm not going to go into it anymore. I just don't want to see us lose at the end of the day. But before we get into the game from Monday, it was Monday, wasn't it? Yeah. I lose track of what day it is. Before we get into Monday's game, don't forget you can get your hands on some Giants merch over at usasports.co.uk. Use the code BIGBLUE to get yourself 10% off your entire order. All about the tank train? No, we're not all aboard the tank train. First of 2 games against Filthy in 3 weeks. The game itself, especially in the second half, ended up being much more entertaining than it looked like it was going to be at half time. But unfortunately, all that hard work we saw in the final 30 minutes, it really came to nothing, as the game was lost when Tyrod Taylor was put in the game in the second half. And in all honesty, he made the game exciting through that game-ending interception from the 6-yard line as time expired. We scored 22 points in that second half, getting within 2 points of the Eagles, never taking the lead though. And as a result, we now dropped to 5-10 on the season and are officially eliminated from playoff contention. Damn it. According to Tankathon, the Giants currently hold the number 5 pick in 2024 thanks to their easier strength of schedule, which I'm sure Shane is very happy with. However, it could get better depending on results in the upcoming weeks. Like you said, where I'm not hoping for. You're hoping for some Washington and New England wins, which, let's face it, are very, very tough to come by this season. So I can't see that happening anytime soon. But yeah, currently holding number 5 pick, which could all change over the coming weeks. Producer Craig, we saw a lot of good in the second half, but what stood out?
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely a few players who, especially in the second half, kind of elevated their game enough that we can give them their props. Saquon Barkley, for one, as is the par for the Giants' running game this season, because I do think that our sort of run blocking game has been quite possibly one of the worst I've seen in a long, long time. It's really been poor, but Saquon still was able to give us a few highlights, finishing the game with 80 yards and a touchdown, 23 carries. The big thing with Saquon, though, is that a few of those runs were fourth down conversions, important fourth down conversions that kind of allowed us to continue drives and keep the game close. And that's really what's key, especially when we're struggling as an offense, as we have been, is to try and just get those little yards. I think Barkley was only averaging about 3.5 a carry, yet still managed 80 yards. And yeah, his touchdown came off of that opening second half hilarity that happened to the Eagles. And there's nothing better than seeing Boston Scott fumble the ball, especially after all of the stuff that he's put us through. So yeah, Saquon really starts it off. I've got Tyrod Taylor-ish. Ish. So while, as we've said, Tyrod was the spark that the Giants offense needed, it wasn't plain sailing with him in, even though he really took us to another level that DeVito just couldn't seem to do in the first half. Tyrod's 7 completions was actually less than DeVito's 9, but 133 yards and a touchdown and an interception kind of doesn't really scratch the surface of the inconsistencies that Tyrod displayed during the game. For every great moment that he had, there was an equally head-scratching one. The energy, couple of nice throws to Waller on the final drive, the phenomenal pass to Slayton on that 69-yard touchdown were kind of counteracted by missing multiple easy connections with players that would have extended drives. There was one to Saquon in, I think it was one of the first drives that we ended up having to, I think we settled for a field goal. And then Waller in the fourth quarter. I mean, Waller houses that's straight into the end zone and maybe a completely different game, because we really did have the Eagles on the ropes at that time. Both times that he missed, we failed fourth down conversions. So, it counterbalances exactly really why Tyrod is not a starter in this league. Bobby doesn't really have to do a lot without us for us to give him a shout out these days. Wasn't his best game, but 10 tackles were team co-leading with Xavier McKinney. Plus, he had a cutback hurry and a pass defended, which he always seems to do. He seems to be quite good at blocking passes in the pass game. And before we kind of get onto the questions, is it Straight Off the Couch 2, the sequel with Mason Crosby? 39-year-old, hadn't played all season, second veteran player, as I've said, to come off the couch. Drilled his 52-yard field goal in the first half, converted both his extra point attempts. Not really much more you can ask from a kicker, especially one who hasn't actually had a meaningful snap since he left the Packers last year. But before we kind of look at players of the game, Kieran asked the question, what's next for Tommy now that Tyrod has been confirmed as starter? And my question is, exactly in that vein. The Tommy DeVito experience, as it's been called, was abruptly ended at the half. Do you think this is the last we see of Tommy this season? And Shane, how do you rate the Tommy DeVito experience?
I think it will be the last that we see of him this season. Obviously, I don't know, we might be coming on to this later on or in the next episode, but obviously he has been confirmed. Toro has been confirmed as the starter for the Rams game, which we'll come on to later on. But yeah, I think it's the last that we see of Tommy DeVito. Personally, I don't agree with it. I wouldn't have benched him on Sunday, in all honesty. I'd have just been like, Tyrod's not going to be here next year. There's nothing to gain from it. And, playoffs are gone. And it's not so much as tanky, but for me, now it's a case of, let's see Tommy get the rest of the snaps. Let's see Javarius Owens in there. Let's see Trey Hawkins in there. Let's see Eric Gray a little bit more. Not saying they've got to be starters. I'm not saying bench McKinney, bench Saquon and bench Adoree, but maybe get them involved a lot more. Let them get a little bit more exposure. That's the route I personally would have preferred to go. Again, not for the purpose of tanking, but just giving these players who haven't seen that many snaps either through injury or through other players outperforming them over the course of the season. But now the playoffs are gone, just get them more exposure and let them get game time and feel what NFL speed actually feels like.
Dan, what do you think about Tommy?
Yeah, I think it's the last we see of him this season. Tyrod's in for the Rams game, and I can't see him being benched for the second Eagles game unless he has an absolute shocker this weekend. But it's not the last we see of him, period, I don't think. Moving forward into next season, I think he's proven he's good enough to be on the roster as a backup. So I think he'll still be on our roster next season. Obviously, it was a coach's decision on the night to bench him. In all honesty, I was the same as Shane. I didn't agree with it at the time, but looking back on it, was it the right call? Potentially. Tommy didn't have great numbers in the first half. I think he was 9 of 15 for 30 odd yards or something like that. So he, it wasn't much production coming from him. So maybe Dave's decided to mix it up and throw Tyrod in there because he could potentially throw the deep ball, and he wasn't scared of throwing the deep ball. Let's face it. The 69-yard bomb to Darius Slayton was a highlight, and he went. I think the first play in the third quarter, he went out and threw it long. I think it was incomplete, but even still, it was. You could see the intent was there. In the second half, we did look a lot more competitive. The first half, we didn't look great. I think the scoreline flattered Philadelphia. There was too many mistakes on our side. Obviously, the mistake coming up to halftime, which we'll cover later on, allowed them to put more points on the board. But this is Tyrod's time to put himself in the shop window for other teams next season, because he's not going to be around in 2024. So, yeah, answering the original question, yes, the last time we see him this season, but not in future. I think he's going to be around for a little bit longer.
Yeah, just to kind of touch on a couple of points there. Tyrod putting himself in the shop window. I mean, he's not really young anymore, and there's a lot of quarterbacks really who are being discussed as potential backups next year, who though might not be on the starter level anymore, are definitely, I would say, better than Tyrod Taylor on their day. Players like Baker Mayfield, we don't know what's going to happen at the Bucs. You've got Ryan Tannehill, who's likely to become a free agent. Tennessee looking like they're going to go with Levis going forward. So, you know, there could be some bigger names out there. Tyrod's injury history obviously is not going to kind of excite teams either, but he is a reliable backup, and he showed that. And I just wanted to touch on a point that Shane made as well about, you know, players coming into the game and actually seeing some meaningful snaps. One player that we haven't actually mentioned who didn't get many snaps, but I think he was quite impactful when he did, was Jordan Riley. Riley really made a couple of really nice run stops, especially shedding Jason Kelsey a couple of times. So it'd be nice to see how he progresses. I saw somebody on X comparing him to, you know, we've got rid of Leonard Williams, but we kind of have a Leonard Williams already. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with Riley. Back to you then, Dan. Player of the game.
Player of the game, yeah. Tay Banks for me. You know, he's a rookie. We all know that he's our first round pick in the draft this year. He hasn't shied away from being outspoken. He's been very outspoken. You know, we've seen the chain that he's got that says banks are closed on Sundays, or banks are closed, or whatever it says. He's not shied away from taking on the best receivers in the league as well. And this week was no different. AJ Brown. And in the first half, he lined up against Brown more often than not and held him to one catch for 6 yards. In the second half, AJ was able to get a bit more out of Banks before Tay actually got injured and came out of the game in the third quarter. But even when Brown made the catches against Banks, his coverage was very, very good and didn't allow a single yard after the catch as well. In fact, it was -1 yards after the catch for AJ Brown. With an overall grade of 66.9 according to PFF, only 3 defensive players graded higher than him in the game, all with significantly more experience than him as well. He had 3 receptions on 4 targets in total for just 17 yards across the whole game. Banks will close this Christmas. Job done.
Right. Shane, shed some light on someone who's potentially a bit underappreciated by Giants fans.
Yeah, so my player of the game went for Darius Slayton. You know, he was targeted 3 times, 3 receptions, 90 yards, 1 touchdown, obviously on that 69-yard pass from Tyrod Taylor. And, you know, during Monday's broadcast, Pat Leonard sent a tweet out that said Darius Slayton's on the verge of leading the Giants in receiving yards for the 4th time in his 5-year career. I think he just says, I found a way, somehow, some way, I found a way. And I think, you know, the stat kind of confirms 2 things, that the Giants' lack of wide receiver, 1, isn't just a this year problem, and 2, that Slayton is massively underappreciated. And I mentioned this on last week's pod, that I think he gets some unfair stick. I mean, if you look at his kind of career stats, he's 602 yards so far this season. In 3 of the previous 4 seasons tonight, he went over 700 yards every time. And, you know, one of the big knocks on him last season was he drops the ball a lot. He had 8 drops last year. He's had 2 this year. So, you know, I just think he's a player that's like vastly underappreciated, and I kind of don't really get why. Like, you've drafted him in the 5th round, and he's been asked to play wide receiver 1 at times. Essentially, he's not a wide receiver 1. I will openly admit that. But I mentioned to you guys forward on the air that someone put a tweet out earlier on today mentioning the fact that he, on a regular basis, goes up against CB1 on the opposing team. And you're asking someone who's probably a wide receiver 3, potentially a wide receiver 2, to go up against a CB1 week in, week out. And, you know, I just think he's really underrated and underappreciated by a lot of Giants fans. And you know, we mentioned it last week. He turned down more money with Atlanta to come back here. And, you know, I mean, I'm not a massive Daniel Jones guy, but it doesn't matter who's under centre, Slayton is always backing him up. Like, you've seen him on about the Daniel Jones stuff and the no DJ slander and that. That's what you want your wide receivers to do. You want them to back the quarterback up, not sort of throw him under the bus like previous wide receivers have. Or, he's never a prima donna or anything. And for me, I just thought, I don't think he's been player of the game this season for any of us. I don't think. So I think it was deserved. And I'm a massive. I'm a Slayton guy. I've been for a while, to be fair. I will openly admit he's not the perfect receiver, but like I say, we're asking him to play at times wide receiver 1, and that's not his job. Or that's not what he can do, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. We've said multiple times that he gets a lot of slander just because of the fact that he's not posting those big numbers that other wide receivers around the league do. But when you look at what we're kind of giving him, he's making chicken salad out of chicken shit a lot of the time, isn't he? So yeah, fair play. I went for Adoree Jackson, and Adoree Jackson kind of has the same thing that Tyrod has. It's Adoree Jackson-ish, but he got my player of the game because of one massive play. His interception of Jalen Hurts, he returned 76 yards to the house, despite the fact we might put out there that Jalen Hurts was being a prick and decided that the horse collar tackle was the only way he was going to be able to take down Adoree, but Adoree was having absolutely none of it. That interception was the 4th of Jackson's career and his first since November 2021. Incidentally, it was also his first ever career score in his 7 seasons in the league. However, he also hit a max speed of 20.92 on his pick six, the 3rd fastest speed on a pick six this season, and the fastest play by a Giants ball carrier this season. So he popped the wheels on, but it is Adoree, and Adoree did Adoree things. Missed tackles and soft coverage. It's inexcusable at times, but he made such a big play. I think you can kind of give him a pass for this one, which is why I've kind of put it as ish. But, he probably had the biggest play of the game outside of the Slayton touchdown. And then Kev, Dan, do you want to cover Kev's?
Yeah, I'll cover Kev's. So this guy's been ever present on the defense this whole throughout the season. Kev went for Xavier McKinney. As it says on the screen, he's played 100% of snaps in this game, and he's played almost every defensive snap this season as well, I believe. Continued his recent upturn in form with 10 tackles plus a shared sack, quarterback hit, and key coverage snap that saw him prevent a touchdown as well. 85 tackles on the season there, as it says as well. He's been, the last few weeks, he's definitely been playing himself into contention for a new contract in a league that constantly sees players rotated. It's great that he's been ever present in this team all season, but one of the defensive captains, and he proved his worth on Monday as well. He had a great game overall. I thought one of the standout players on defense, and I think Kev felt the same as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's Shane's turn to give us the bad news. Shane's back to the bad, unfortunately.
Shane's back to the bad. Go on, Shane. What didn't go so well?
To be fair, I was just thinking, when's last time I did the bad? Then I can't remember. Yeah, there's a couple of things that need talking about on the bad, and the first one I'm going to talk about is the first half special teams. I'm back to talking about the bad. The special teams is back on the bad. It's just like all over again earlier on in the season. The Giants couldn't afford many mistakes that would benefit the Eagles early. But, that's what happened. And both of the Eagles' first half touchdowns were due to the return of the special teams wobble, if that's what we want to call it. I don't know if it's worth giving it a name. If anyone's got any suggestions in the comments, any innuendo of some sort, by all means, stick it in there and we can start referring to it as that. The first was due to Jamie Gillen, who came into the game with a groin injury, so you could maybe give him a little bit of a pass on that. But again, at the same time, a little bit like Gano earlier in the season when he was missing field goals. if you're fit and you're dressed, you're expected to deliver at the end of the day. There can be no excuses. And, you know, he hit a low punt to the Eagles 33 special shit show. Yeah, we can refer to it as that. Unfortunately, due to the trajectory, the Giants' gunners didn't have enough time to get to the returner. And, you know, Eagles were able to return the ball 54 yards, 2 plays and 13 yards later. And the Eagles scored. And then again, you know, second time red, a little bit of deja vu again. Jamie Gillen involved again. It was shanked. I don't know if that's a professional term, but that's what we're going to call it. It was shanked and travelled only 31 yards. It bounced into the arms of Covey again, who was able to pick up an extra 12 on the return, which meant the Eagles were already in the on the edge of the Giants' half, and then 3 plays were all it took for the Eagles to score kind of yet again. You know, I mean, it's going to be one to keep an eye on this week. In regards to Jamie Gillen, I believe the Giants brought 3 punters in last week, so that potentially indicates that were they overly happy with where Jamie Gillen was at going into Sunday? Maybe, maybe not. But, you know, you don't bring 3 punters in for no reason. And then the next part of the bad was the offensive play calling. And, you know, we've spoken on here multiple times about how concerning it is to see some of the uninspiring play calls from Mike Kafka. And, you know, I don't think it was ever more evident than on the Giants' last drive in the first half, where Kafka called a Barkley run up the middle on 4th and 1. The stadium guessed it was going to be a run play. The Eagles guessed it was a run play. Here in England at 10:30, 11 o'clock of the night time, after we'd all been on the piss because it was Christmas Day, even we were able to tell it was going to be a run play. And, you know, that's exactly what it was. And Reddick was able to bundle through to stuff Barkley for a 4-yard loss. Next, it was another failed 4th down. However, this time at the beginning of the 4th quarter, he went for a passing play. However, the Giants lined up with 3 wide receivers, all on the right of the quarterback, who all ran shallow routes for some reason. Tyrod was instantly pressured by Reddick, who was unblocked amongst the wide receivers. Tyrod was able to get the throw away. However, because it was just so congested, he had to throw behind the line of scrimmage, resulting on an incomplete pass. So, you know, 2 really poor play calling, and just as it's kind of seemed that maybe the play calling was just starting to get a little bit better over the last few weeks, it just seems like it's gone back to the shit show, as that seems to be the key word on this segment today. The shit show that it was earlier on in the season. Now, obviously, Kafka's taken some of the blame for this, but kind of upon second viewing of them, both calls had unblocked defenders impacting the play. So do we also have to account for the fact that our offensive players should have picked up on this, Dan?
I mean, yes. You know, the defenders should have been picked up. But I think on one of the plays, the defender came inside when he originally lined up outside. He motioned inside, and the ball was snapped. And between him motioning inside and the ball being snapped, the offense didn't adjust. And I think it was Hassan Reddick just burst through, and that was I think I was on the 4th and 1 with Barkley. You know, these things happen, but yeah, they should have been picked up. But in all honesty, why was the run called for the 3rd time in a row on 4th and short? Like you said, it was so predictable. We predicted it here. Every person in that stadium predicted it there. So I'm sure as hell Matt Patricia, who was calling plays on defensive plays on the sideline for the Eagles, was predicting that as well. So, you know, Kafka's been underwhelming at times at best this season, really. Our offensive game plans have been poor, and I've lost count of the amount of times I've said he has to go, but Mike Kafka's got to go, unfortunately. And Steve, special shit show. I mean, that's been a shit show all season, right?
Yeah. I mean, you've spoken about the first one there, the run stuff. I've watched the second one quite a few times because I was kind of just really intrigued as to what had happened there, especially when you look at the fact that, you know, there are those 3 wide receivers on the right-hand side. The pass goes to Wandale, who's probably one of the smallest wide receiver, but then again, we don't have big wide receivers, really. They're all on the smaller side. And the throw's not great, but I think you have to kind of give Tyrod a pass on it just because of the fact that Reddick was literally like right here. I think that's part of the problem as well, is that Reddick kind of just got lost amongst the shuffle with the three wide receivers kind of out there in that bunch formation. They kind of assumed that everyone out there was going to try and impact that. And that's how Reddick kind of just went unnoticed. But the other thing that really baffled me is that Saquon kind of runs up to the middle and hits the line of scrimmage, but doesn't. I'm not sure if he's blocking or if he's trying to get through to maybe offer another option, because we had no one on the left-hand side. No one motioned out to the left. No one, cut back into the left-hand side as the play developed. So it was just a real strange one. That one probably pisses me off more than the Barkley run, although the Barkley run was as blatant and obvious as we've said it was. But I just feel like at least then you are kind of putting the ball in the hands of your biggest playmaker, and that's what we should have probably done on this fourth down attempt. But yeah, I just didn't like the bunch formation. It made no sense on a key fourth down when it's 4th and 1 to go for a bunch. Like if you're gonna send someone to the house as part of that, then I get it, because you're freeing up maybe one defender. But to have all three of them there plus 4 defenders around them, I don't understand how we were going to convert that.
I mean, it's a difficult play to convert at any time if all 3 receivers are going to run short routes, let alone on a 4th and 1 when the game is almost on the line at that point. So, yeah, I mean, like I've said before, multiple times before, Kafka is he's not proven himself, and he's not proven that he can call a good offensive game plan. So yeah, like I said, in my opinion, he's got to go. It's got to go.
There's a question in the comments. I'm just going to throw it to Shane first, but Holty's put, can we talk about how poor and disinterested Kayvon looked this week? Massive fan, but he was non-existent Monday. 1 QB pressure, and that was it, I believe. Are we right to expect more consistency from Kayvon? Because he flashes, doesn't he? It's not game to game, and there are flashes.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, you could turn around and say, yeah, he was number 5 overall pick. I feel like he's kind of battered with that stick a little bit too often, in all honesty. I think the problem comes, obviously, he's been a little bit inconsistent over the last sort of couple of weeks. But you look at it, he's not really got much opposite him on the other edge, and you got Dex on a snap count as well. So he's having to do a lot of work on his own. And like, I don't know if this is like the game plan for the teams we're playing against, but you probably just think, well, we've only really got to worry about, A-Sean potentially. And A-Sean's not a great pass rusher. He's more of a run stopper. So you can predominantly focus on Thibodeau, and you can maybe, I mean, I don't know how often he was, but you could potentially look at double teaming him. So I feel like kind of on one hand, you could turn around and say, yeah, because, 5th overall pick, and if you want to be considered one of the best at your position, you've got to find a way to win. But at the same time, he's not helped by any of his teammates at the minute. Obviously, I mean, Aziz injury prone. I don't know what Aziz's snap count was like the weekend, but he's coming back from an injury. Dex was on a snap count, and outside of that, you got, like I say, A-Sean and Haddy, who aren't notorious pass rushers. So there's just a lot of pressure probably coming Tibbs' way, to be fair to him.
Yeah, it probably comes down to the fact that, as much as Wink likes to blitz, Tibbs is the first player to get over 10 sacks under a Wink defense. So you're not always going to be able to get rushes free, especially from the edge position. Edge position is probably one thing that Wink kind of takes maybe a little bit for granted on his defenses. So yeah, I agree. Dan, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, let's not forget as well, we're up against the Philadelphia Eagles, who have one of the best offensive lines in the league.
They also have Lane Johnson, who somehow doesn't get full started on every single snap that he takes.
It's very true. Is it who's the left tackle? Jordan? Is it Mailata? Jordan Mailata, whatever his name is.
I think so.
Yeah, he's unbelievably good. I think they mentioned him on the commentary in the game on Monday, but he's sneakily one of the best left tackles in the league at the moment. And Kayvon, he looked he looked off. During the game, I think he said what, one quarterback pressure. I think it was one QB hit and two hurries, something like that, wasn't it? He had not great numbers, and you're coming up against one of the better teams in the league. Obviously, the division leading, or were they leading the division at the time? I can't remember. Their offensive line is pretty damn good, so it's going to be a difficult game for our defensive line to get any pressure on the quarterback, and it proved that it was a very, very difficult game for him because we didn't get much pressure on Jalen Hurts throughout the whole game. So I think, he didn't look great, but let's not forget that the Eagles' offensive line is pretty damn good. So I'm not too disappointed that Kayvon wasn't as good as he could have been. And I can't wait for the tush push to be scrapped either, Jamie.
So
roll on the league meeting in March or April when it is scrapped.
So kind of on that, did you guys see the Carl Banks radio call? Is that something either of you have heard as of yet? So
no,
what Banks said is the way to stop the tush push is just to take the penalty and go off sides and just jump over the line and smash the quarterback.
That's such a defensive player's mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, there was somebody tweeted out an accompanying video that kind of showed Banks doing something very similar. Obviously, it's not allowed. Obviously, it would be an offside penalty. Would you reckon?
Why not? Why not?
I mean, I don't think it's something that's going to get stopped anytime soon, to be honest.
No
one seems to move like the Eagles do.
I actually watched it quite closely
because the team converts every time.
Yeah,
I mean they've converted. I think they said they've converted 26 of 27 this season.
Fourth down, they're 75%. I looked at it earlier.
Yeah,
they're highest in the league, obviously.
Yeah, I think when they've attempted the tush push, they've done converted 26 or 27 times, which is ludicrous. But if it isn't scrapped, I think teams will hopefully wise up to it and be able to stop it. But when you've got half a ton of muscle coming at you, it's going to be very difficult to stop it.
The way I was kind of watching it quite closely, and the way they kind of do it is Dallas Goedert kind of goes behind Hurts and kind of pushes him up the offensive lineman's back. That's the difference, is that they've got obviously this big body tight end behind Hurts, who Hurts isn't a small guy either. And they just he almost surfs his body on top of the offensive lineman, and that's how they seem to be converting it every single time.
Yeah, it's working, but the annoying and frustrating thing is it's Philly that it's working for, and you see that smug look on Nick Sirianni's face every time, and that smug look on Jason Kelsey's face every time. You just want to punch them both.
Yeah,
but
I've got to be honest. I do like Jason Kelsey. Him
and Travis on their podcast is their quality.
Man.
Do we want to talk about their little conversation about squirts the other day?
Look, this next time we have a meet up, neither of you got permission to squirt in my mouth.
Where is this conversation going?
You need to
let's move swiftly on, shall we? See what I did there? Move swiftly on.
Oh, get out.
You like that? All right, it's that time again. It's time.
What the Feagles?
What the Feagles?
Jamie spoiled it for you, Dan.
Why? What's he said? Yeah. Can we go for more than one game without any officials being controversial or shit? Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we can, Jamie, at the moment. But yeah, I think this is probably the third time this season what the Feevers has been the referees. Where do we start? This season just seems to have been worse than all other seasons in memory, really. But this was possibly one of the worst performances that you've seen, and it's cost us dearly this week. There were three massive turning points that cost the Giants, but also some very questionable calls as well. Firstly, that was that phantom false start called on centre JMS on that critical fourth down. There we go. Holt's got it. Called on that critical fourth down that should have been a defensive offside, and it would have given the Giants a first down. But apparently, John Michael Schmidt's doing this is a false start. I mean, that enough is a what the Feagles moment, because even Dean Blandino said the officials got it wrong. So that was, I've never seen anything like it. Never ever seen anything like that. Like doing that and getting called for a false start. He didn't move a muscle, didn't move an inch apart from his neck. Didn't realise you couldn't move your neck. But there we go. Next up, Bobby Okereke was penalised for a delay of game mere seconds before time was due to expire in the first half. Jalen Hurts didn't step out of bounds, and as Okereke tackled him, the ball came loose, so he snagged it, as you would. Now, the replay has confirmed that Hurts was down, which Bobby wouldn't have known at the time. And he was well within his right to try and get the ball and to try and smother it. With 4 seconds left in the half, it wasn't like the Eagles were going to be able to snap it. So the half should have ended there and then. But no, the flag was called for defensive delay of game, which I don't think I've ever seen called ever in my almost 20 years of watching this game. I don't think I've ever seen a delay of game call on the defense. And I don't get it. And obviously it then led to them kicking a field goal to extend their lead into halftime. That's the second instance. And then finally, on the Giants' final drive, Tyrod Taylor took a shot to Wan'Dale Robinson, who was near the left sideline. And if you want to see a blatant pass interference call, go back, or what should have been a blatant pass interference call, go back and watch that play, because I swear the Eagles are either paying the refs or something dodgy is going on, because how that wasn't flagged as defensive pass interference, I will never know. Defender didn't get his head around, was all up in his grill, all over him, and he didn't get flagged for it. After the game, even Coach Dable refused to discuss it, saying, "I'd say any official questions you can ask those guys." I mean, we can talk about what we like because we're not going to get fined for it, but come on, refs. Ronald Torbett and your crew, what the Beagles was that? Craig, what did you make of the refereeing?
It wasn't.
What did you make of it?
Was it? Wasn't great. We were pretty hot in the old group chat over it, weren't we? Especially the JMS one. I mean, Holty said Dable was raging. I'm pretty sure that's what we were like on that full start. Just I can't get my head around it. You know, as Holty said, Lane Johnson can jump back 10 yards for nothing. But yeah, I genuinely cannot fathom what he's seen there, because the centre is well within their rights to quickly look back, make sure that the quarterback is there, make sure that they're not, that they're ready, etc. It's not like Andrew Thomas or Tyree Phillips is kind of, giving it the twitch or anything like that. How many times do you see a centre look back? I'm sure Kelsey probably did it on the next series for the Eagles. I really, really don't get that one. And as Jamie says, no consequences for their actions, but you can get a $10,000 fine for a taunt or over celebrating. Really does feel like the no fun league, doesn't it? But yeah, all three of them were bad. I just feel like the phantom false start is just the worst of the lot, just because it's so blatantly cheating. It is. It was an offside. Their players completely bundled through, and it gets called on us. I mean, I don't know.
It's a joke, absolute joke. Shane, what did you make of refereeing?
I feel like I always say this when refs come up, but it's not the reason we lost the game. If we're completely honest with you, Was that poor calls? Yes. I just think that sports in general at the minute, like refereeing in every sport I've seen to watch lately, is absolutely diabolical. Like, I
Don't even
mean,
get me started on VAR.
well, that's what going off topic slightly. Nottingham Forest player got sent off the other day for winning the ball because it was a second yellow card, and VAR
Yeah,
can't
that
intervene
was
because second yellow, and it's like,
a disgrace.
number one, that rule needs change. But number two, how's the ref watching that live and thinking that the ball literally goes away from where the player's running? He's got to have won it. So I think it doesn't matter what sport it is. I mean, obviously, I don't watch NBA or MLB. I mean, yeah, don't even get me started on championship refs. Craig will know exactly what I mean. The two Steves will know exactly what I mean. Like, championship refereeing is absolutely horrendous. But I just feel like that's just sports in general at the minute. I mean, I don't know what the solution is to getting better refereeing in all sports. There only seems to be a couple that I can think of where they're, well, probably cricket's the only one where I can probably think you've got good umpires, as they're called, in that sport. I think even rugby's got questionable refereeing decisions over the World Cup that we had in the last couple of months. So I don't know what the answer is to refs in general in every sport, but they all just seem just absolute shite at the moment.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Did it lead to us not winning this game? Some of these calls, potentially. Obviously, we didn't win the game regardless. So whether some of these calls weren't there or not, it could have changed the course of the game. Like Steve says, that PI gets called, it could have changed the course of the game. If the defensive offside was called, that would have been a first down, so it could have changed the course of the game. Ultimately, it didn't, and it we lost the game, and I get that. But it is just so frustrating. I think there was a late hit on, was it on Tyrod or Tommy DeVito?
No, it was on Tyrod, the offsetting one. Are you thinking of?
Yeah.
We had that conversation, didn't we?
This is another thing that I just don't really get about the NFL penalties sort of rules. How is a personal foul for a late hit on a quarterback being offset by, was it a false start? Or no, it was a
offensive holding.
Offensive holding. How is that offsetting? Like, I'm sorry, you've potentially endangered the health of a player by hitting him late while he's on the floor, compared to an offensive player just grabbing hold of somebody's jersey or holding on to them for a second too long. How in any way, shape or form do those penalties offset? And it should be done by the severity of the penalty, not, there's a flag for either side, so we'll just scrap them. Makes no sense. Makes no sense whatsoever. And you're not wrong, Holty, mate. It's frustrating, but it doesn't change the fact we were still shit on offense. Yeah, offensively, we weren't great. Obviously we were helped out big time by Adori's pick six, but yeah, there were times where we were moving the ball under Tyrod, and I thought we weren't horrendous. We weren't as bad as we've seen this season. There were glimpses of promise, and I mean glimpses. It's slim pickings when you're at this stage of the season. You're 5-10, so we'll take what we can get. But yeah, overall, refereeing what the Eagles, because that was a damn disgrace. A damn disgrace.
So Jamie was surprised that the Eagles weren't covered in Vaseline because we couldn't tackle to save our lives. I mean, missed tackles was one of the things that we did have on the agenda, but kind of scrapped because of time. But do we want to have a quick chat about the tackles now? Missed tackles?
Shane, go ahead, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it just really ugly head again, didn't it? I mean, like earlier on in the season. I mean, it's kind of hard because we're not in a position to win that game if it's not for our defense. Yet again, it comes down to our defense to keep us in the game. So you can't be too harsh on the defense. But I mean, like some of the missed tackles early on. I mean, like, yeah, the special teams missed tackles were a joke. I think there was Pinnock had quite a few missed tackles, and
Michael McFadden had a few as well.
McFadden, I was going to say as well. I thought he had quite a few as well. And again, it was something that we're kind of seeing in the first sort of like, say, was it first 2-3 weeks of the season where we just literally didn't seem to tackle and we go for that big hit or that, like, get the ball out, get a turnover too much. And again, I mean, I don't know if some of that is down to Winks coaching where he wants them to try and get the ball out and try and make, like, get a turnover when they're on the field, or whether it's the fact that defense are like, look, let's be honest, we know the offense is shit. We've got to turn it over to be able to stand a chance. But you can't kind of keep relying on your defense to bail you out every week. So was there some bad missed tackles? Yes, but I think we've got to be got to give some credit to the defense as well, because we're not in a position to win that game without them.
No, and obviously bear in mind that our defense is top of the turnover table at the moment. So for every kind of bad thing that happens, you kind of have to take the good with it as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we're not the only defense that misses tackles. Everybody misses tackles. I think it's just some,
bad this
we seem to, we seem to miss tackles at key times and key moments of the game. Like on that punt return, I mean, the missed tackles were a joke, and sometimes your players that have been reliable all season, like your Pinnocks, like your McFaddens, just they have a bad game, and unfortunately, it just happens to be against our biggest rivals in Philadelphia. They do have a bad game, miss a few tackles, so it's a shame, but yeah, it's not the end of the world, but the missed tackles are a problem, and they do definitely need to get better, and hopefully don't have these issues next season.
No, I was just trying to look it up, but PFF's mobile site is not the greatest for looking at tackles. There we go. Missed tackles, 15 in the game. 3 by McFadden, 3 by Pinnock, 2 by Flott, 2 by Adori, and then Simmons, Banks, Belton, Akereke, McLeod all had 1 each. Just on the point of Belton as well, props to Belton for his tackle on Jalen Hurts. Could have quite easily taken him down on the horse collar, kept it clean. I think a flag was thrown but picked up. But
it was on the shoulder pad, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably one of the best tackles I've seen this season. Just for the angle and also making sure that it wasn't flagged.
Yeah, and it was in the open field as well, so it wasn't as if he was stationary. He was running, so it was a great tackle, and he got the angle spot on to make that tackle. So yeah, great call. Alrighty. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for tonight. But we will be back tomorrow evening at the usual time of 8:30 as we look ahead to our Week 17 game as the Los Angeles Rams, that's what I meant to say, the Los Angeles Rams head east to MetLife in our penultimate game of the season. Anything else to add before we go, guys?
No, just obviously, if you're a little bit unsure at the minute and you do want to get on board the tank train, just drop us a DM and I'm sure I can get you a ticket sorted. You're welcome to join me and Craig. Dan, we'd love to have you on board, mate, for the last 2 weeks of the season.
Not going to happen. I'm going to miss that train.
He's on the integrity train with Steve Wilkins, isn't he?
True fan here. True fan.
No, nothing to add. Just it's been good just chatting about it. It's always nice sometimes to get on these after a loss and kind of just discuss exactly what's happened. But also just for all of our listeners, tomorrow's podcast is going to be pre-recorded because of time constraints. We're finding it quite difficult to get time, but we will be pre-recording our preview episode. So we won't have any fan predictions, but still feel free to throw them in the comments and we'll try and reply to each of them. Steve sitting in first class on the integrity train.
Yeah, baby.
But yeah, we'll be back live next week.
We certainly will be. Tomorrow been pre-recorded, but it will still be worth the watch and worth the listen anyway. So make sure you tune in at the usual time because it will be out there on all available platforms. Make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hit the bell, get the latest updates and notifications, and give us a rating on your podcast platform of choice. If you want to share some love and spread the love and show us some love, check out our Etsy shop, etsy.com/BigBlueUKIRL, to get yourself some sweet podcast merch. And yeah, my thanks as ever go to you, Shane, and to you, Craig, for joining me, and to you, the viewers and listeners, for tuning in. We are signing off until next time. Let's go, Giants.